What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for Wheel of Stupid on Lock and Load. Brian, let's hear the mutation.
Lock and load is where we capture 5 spots on the map called locks. To capture, both allies must be on it until it turns green. If the enemy gets a lock until it turns red, it starts a timer bar that ticks until we get it back, and fills faster the more locks he has. If the bar hits full, we lose. Random mutators cycle in for over 4 minutes, and then cycle out for a new one. There are 3 active at a time, and a mutator switches every 90 seconds.
Alright, so we have Eveling and a call with us today. Eveling, how are you?
Waking up, doing alright.
Yeah, I'm just about to head to bed actually. So, so how do you rank the commanders this week?
This week is gonna depend on how well they do on lock and load, how quickly they can finish it, because the quicker you can do it, the less chance that a mutator can roll in that can screw you over. Certain commanders are subject to certain mutators, so this is mostly going to be, I think, a tier list on how good a commander is overall in the aspect of clearing lock and load quickly, and then being tolerant to most mutators. And then, of course, almost every commander has at least one mutator they're not too tolerant about. And
That's a very good. That's a very good way of doing it. What I did is I just looked at the previous 3 tier lists on Wheel of Stupid, and I just kind of averaged them. I just kind of averaged the commanders with special considerations if a commander is good or bad on the map, and they just went with that. So let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
Abathur is typically well known for speedrunning lock and load, and he's pretty tolerant of most mutators. The only mutator that he may have issues with, depending upon what your playstyle is Pupigators. So if you're doing mass swarm hosts and Pupigators rolls in and catches you as you're attacking a base, and the Pupigator spawns right in your face, that can get out of hand real quick. You can try to overwhelm Pupigators with swarm hosts and create the pikey farm, but most players, that might just be GG at that point. So just be very wary of that. I would put Abathur at S.
S? Well, in the previous 3 Wheel of Stupids, Abathur was C tier on Cradle of Death, B tier on Minor Evac, and B tier on Void Thrashing. So that averages to about B for me. I wouldn't call him extremely resilient. He was B.
And
on
not
average,
unanimous, not unanimous, not S.
All right, so would you say A?
Yep.
What would you say makes him stronger in lock and load as compared to a map like Cradle of Death?
Deep tunnel.
Deep tunnel?
10-second deep tunnels.
On lock and load? Why is that important?
You can start. So if you have an ally that can follow you with the deep tunnels, you can get in back of the lock, and so as soon as you step right on top of the lock, that's going to cause all the defenders in the area to aggro and then try to recap the lock, or get to capping the lock. What you can do is you can actually lay a bunch of toxic nests right at the edge boundaries where the defenders aren't, and then you step on that, and then you start drawing in all of them, and then hopefully, I mean, good portion of locks have air defenders, and that's a little bit of issue because there's a significant amount, especially at the lock to the bottom right, which usually has carriers, battle cruisers, or broodlords, which could be a problem against 1 or 2 brutalists. But there's also be a lot of ground defenders, so it's a good way to farm some biomass. And if your ally, let's say if a Karax or a Swann. Swann that has a concentrated beam, pulse cannon, or Karax with solar lance. That could be a real quick way to wipe the lock, wipe out all the defenders, and begin capping real quick.
Theoretically, you can delete the small units really quickly, but on the last two locks, the North Lock and the East Lock, there are big hybrids guarding there, and those typically don't go down very quickly, especially if you try to speedrun this. Also, there are a few more mutators that Abathur will be annoyed by. For example, Fatal Attraction, notably, will make everything stop except like the symbiote on the Brutalisks. Fear will make it more annoying to lure, and of course, when your ultimate illusion gets hit by fear, it takes a significant chunk of your firepower. There's also polarity, which will make it even harder for him to get an early ultimate evolution and just die, because on the first time the units get damaged, or the first time they go down to a toxic nest, they will not drop biomass. So you'll need double the biomass or double the toxic nests to get a fast ultimate evolution. So he may be not quite as robust as we initially think. That's why even in Minor Evac, he's only B tier. On Void Thrashing, he's only B tier.
Well, the way I see it, for a minor evac, that's time. That's more or less time constraint. Whereas lock and load is not really time constraint. I mean, if you can run through it quick enough, then you may not have all those mutators. It's yeah. I mean, we're putting the luck of draw in here, and all those mutators that you mentioned. There's a host of a bunch of other commanders that are subject to that too. So I mean, in the grand scheme of things, relative to them, I think he's a little more robust than other commanders.
I actually factored that into my rating on all these tier lists because, as you said, all the commanders get impacted by them, and for that reason, all the commanders got impacted on the ratings. So they didn't get very high. Like even the previous tier lists for Wheel of Stupid, like on Cradle of Death, there were only 2 S tiers. Minor Evac, there were only 4 S tiers. Void Thrashing, there were only 3 S tiers. So we did factor in how so there are some mutators that negatively impact all commanders, and to make it kind of uh, transferable or not transferable, to make it fairly comparable across different tier lists for different weekly mutations. We did factor in like there are some weeks that are very heavily S tier. There are some weeks that no one's in S tier. For example, with a polarity mutator. So we did factor that. So that's why I think the B is fair for Abathur. There are a lot of mutators that will hit everyone, and therefore everyone is hit in the tiers.
Okay, we'll throw him in B for now and see if that holds true. I'm not going to argue against spreadsheets, which is probably what you're using. So
Yes, I did in fact use a spreadsheet and 3 separate tier lists, and I basically averaged them. All right. I was hoping for a really good argument for A tier, but yeah, he is resilient against a lot of them, but a lot of the mutators hit everyone, so just everyone just gets a general hit to their rankings or their tiers for this week. Alarak on Cradle of Death, he is B tier. On Minor Evac, he is S tier. On Void Thrashing, he is once again in B tier. And the reason he's S tier on Minor Evac is because Alarak and the Mothership are uniquely strong at defending the evac ships as they launch. That's why he's in S tier, because of the map itself. Whereas if we get on Cradle of Death and Void Thrashing, he's kind of middling. That's why he is in B tier. What do you think?
I am saying A to B for Alarak because his power can come out real early. I mean, as soon as Mothership comes out, you can start hammering away on it. And if your ally is on the same board to end the mission early and can provide the firepower to back that up, you can take it down pretty quickly. Now the problem with Alarak is he's subject to a lot of mutators.
A lot of them.
Mothership.
Yes.
Yeah, so you get you get one wrong one, and it could delay you, and the delays are going to make the mission significantly harder.
Black
It
Death,
could
for
be
example,
delay.
if you get Black Death in the middle of a fight, you're not coming
Yep.
back. Another one
Yeah.
is Lava Burst. Mothership is a very
Yes.
large hitbox. It can get just randomly hit by. You can get actually cornered by lava bursts, and it's unfair, but it's reality. So anyway, you said A to B. My
Yep.
average is B, so let's put him in B.
Sure.
Arcturus, where do we have him?
Arcturus has a lot of tools, and it makes it a lot of tools make him robust. But the other aspect is one of his tools are troopers, and they're not that robust. They're real fragile, but they can offer quite a bit of, especially if you're playing P3. They still allow you to project firepower, and if you can establish ESOs on the center island
Yeah.
or the center lock, then you have a very good chance of essentially dealing with like sight mutators, the most annoying short-sighted,
Yes.
then following up by darkness, and those tend to roll pretty frequently.
Yeah.
I would put Arcturus from at this point S to A.
S to A. So, on Cradle of Death, Arcturus is A tier. Minor Evac, Arcturus is A tier. On Void Thrashing, Arcturus is S tier. So that does average from A to S. But it's closer to A for me.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. There's a few things that if you have good control over your units and have a good game plan of what you want to accomplish, it's definitely doable. But there's a lot of points in Arcturus's setup that things can fall apart real quickly.
Yeah, and the only reason
So
he
I
got
agree.
S tier in Void Thrashing is because he can just siege the Void Thrashers from the comfort of his own base. Granted, you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of do that on Lock and Load. You can just wait until you have Nuclear Annihilation and clear the North Lock and then the East Lock, and then just use your Earth Splitters to clear all the other locks, and then you're basically good for the game. Anyway, we agree on A, so let's put him in A. Artanis, on Cradle of Death, he is D tier. Minor Evac, he is E tier. Hammerland, he is B tier. And notably, he did get B tier on Void Thrashing because his Tempest can just fly around the sides and snipe the Void Thrashers from there. So that's definitely an outlier for him. He averages more like D tier in general, unless you can find a specific cheese. So what do you think?
Uh, I don't I don't feel Artanis is D tier. I'm leaning more toward B to C. It's dependent upon how well you're synced with your ally. If you can make use of shield overcharge very well, that can be a major aspect where you can push properly into a base along with your ally and then cap it quick. Uh, if you're not playing P3, there's a lot of mutators where Guardian Shell can be of use. So I think it's very dependent upon Artanis's power is very dependent on how well your ally can cap with you. I think in this one,
I think if
yeah,
I think if it's dependent on your ally, you're kind of not helping the case for yourself. Like a really strong commander would not really care whether your ally takes 10 minutes or 60 minutes to go to stand at the locks. They should be just fine, whatever the case is. Speaking of 60 minutes, I think the reason Artanis doesn't excel in lock and load in particular, I have experienced this. When the game goes long, like longer than 17 minutes, it becomes kind of hectic, wherein you just spend most of your time ping-ponging from one lock to another, putting out wave after wave that come from different sides of the map, where you get very little leeway to actually push toward the north lock and the east lock. And so with that, he doesn't really push strongly because he needs basically his entire army to punch through an enemy base. You can't just send half an army to the North Lock and expect that half army to win. Not with Artanis.
I don't know about that. It's like for P3, if you have your orbital strikes, that's enough to clear a lock given the right set of mutators. So, I mean, if we're
Central
talking,
lock.
let's say, just brutal zero,
Well, yeah, but
you have.
we're talking real stupid here. And remember,
I know,
a
I
lot of
know,
mutators
but
hit all the commanders, so it generally goes down. The trend goes downward. Like we did put Arcturus in S tier, even though on vanilla Lock and Load he could be S tier. He definitely is S tier because a lot of mutators can impact how well you can clear. For example, Arcturus. There's stuff like double edged. There's stuff like microtransactions that will definitely slow him down. That's why he went down a tier from S. And that goes the same, I think, for Artanis. Like, even though, yes, on a regular, brutal Lock and Load, he can be B to C. I can see that. But when you have to go back and forth, and your ally it takes a while, you get a higher chance of rolling something like, for example, Mutators, or Void Rifts, or Avenger, where Artanis doesn't really handle it that well.
I think Artanis handles like Poopagators not too bad as if he has Dragoons. Yeah, I think there's there's a lot of points that or a lot of mutators that Artanis isn't horrible at, not great at, but not really good at. So I mean, in my opinion, that already screams right in the middle, C. So D, I think, is a little too. I have others that I would place in D before Artanis. So you're gonna need to convince me to go down to D, and I'm not convinced yet.
Well, okay, if he insists that he's D tier, well, can't really argue. Well, if
I'm not insisting he's
hold
D
on, hold
tier.
on, hold on, hold on,
I'm
hold on. I misspoke. Calm down.
yeah.
Misspeaking is normal for human beings. I'm not a robot, okay? So if I misspoke, don't jump on it. Let me finish. If you feel he is definitely C tier, then I guess I can't really argue with that. I'm just going by mostly these averages. So let's put him in C tier for now. Dehaka, where do you have him?
Dehaka pack leaders are strong. He's very consistent. I mean, with P2, so where it's not dependent if you start off with mutators that don't allow you to farm early. Just concentrate on your macro. Get out your pack leaders as soon as possible, and one pack leader pretty much clears a lock as long as you don't got something that rose up like polarity. I mean, most other mutators, the pack leaders don't really care about, even if it's double edge. So,
Yes.
yeah, I would say Dehaka is, especially for lock and load, he's known for speedrunning it, along with the Abathur ally. So, S to A, I think.
Okay. On Cradle of Death, Dehaka was C tier. On Minor Evac, Dehaka was A tier. On Void Thrashing, Dehaka was S tier. I think Lock and Load as a map is closer to Void Thrashing than it is to Cradle of Death. Because you can make it a very short map and just use a couple of pack leaders and you're basically home free. So yeah, I think he's also S to A. So if you say he's S, I can't really argue against that. Let's put Dehaka in S. Fenix, on Cradle of Death, he is D tier. On Minor Evac, he is C tier. On Void Thrashing, he is B tier. On Void Thrashing, again, like Artanis, you can do the carrier cheese, just snipe from the sides. So if you take that out of the equation, I don't think there's really a similar strategy he can pull off on Lock and Load in particular. So I think he's more like a C tier for me. What do you think?
I have Phoenix from B to C. He has robust tools but the robustness is within his prestiges. So once you pick prestige, you're kind of, in some sense, somewhat locked into a certain play style. And if there's a mutator that punishes that play style, let's say, for example, you pick P2 and then you roll aggressive deployment, then that could be a problem for your shell farm. But I mean, if you pick something like P1, then the the mutator that hurts it is a double edge. So it's kind of a crapshoot, and just it's wheel stupid. Just be prepared. If it doesn't go well, just try again because you're playing. Again. You're just So I have B to C.
B to C. Okay, I had him in C. You had him in B to C. So both of us have him in C. So let's put him in C. Han and Horner, where do you have him?
Han and Horner, they are not known for being too robust because Han's units are very fragile and are subject to a lot of
weakness,
inhumanity, and even the Horner units are subject to a lot of not so ideal situations. Let's say if you have sovereign battle cruisers and it rolls
double edge.
What's the one with the lava spouts?
Lava burst.
Lava burst, yeah. And double edge is also one you can work around double edge to a certain extent. In fact, I'm not too worried about double edge with Hot and Horner.
Fatal Attraction is really bad with Hot and Horner. Yes.
And Black Death.
Yeah,
is a
COVID.
Bad one.
Very bad.
So, in terms of what prestige to use, anything but P3 is like you want to end the map as quickly as you can before you get a real nasty mutator set. I would say.
Actually, I have the other way around. I think the longer the game goes and the more air strikers you can get, the better it might actually be for Hot and Horner, because the air strikers are basically a risk-free way to clear map. But again, that's a matter of opinion. On Cradle of Death, he was E tier. Minor Evac, they were D tier. Void Thrashing, they were C tier because of the aforementioned side snipe with a capital ship. So that averages up to more like a D tier. So we kind of agree, actually. D tier, right?
I would say C tier, since it's, as you mentioned, Lock and Load is very much like Void Thrashing in terms of the length of the mission.
Oh, I didn't say in that regard.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm kind of keying in on. I mean, we're averaging, but what the average from what I'm hearing is it's not taking into account map length, and I think that's a
I don't think Hot and Horner
factor.
Is a very good speedrunner for this map, especially if there are mutators.
To be D tier?
Well, it's right around the minor evac tier. It's better than the Cradle of Death tier. Slightly worse than the Void Thrashing tier. I don't see why not.
Okay, we'll throw it there.
Alright, Hot and Horror D tier. Karax. On Cradle of Death, he was S tier. On Minor Evac, he was A tier. On Void Thrashing, he is A tier. That averages to right about A tier. There's a caveat though, because you really need to lean on your Spear Badoon, and there is some map to clear, so Spear Badoon may not quite cut it fast enough for most of Lock and Load. You may need to get some actual units to at least destroy the buildings. So that's A tier for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I have Karax from S to A, but I can definitely I'm leaning more toward A. He's not Dehaka level
It's not
because
Dehaka
he
level.
still has to get. He needs to get units into there, but pretty much Spirit of a Dune. If you have enough energy, it pretty much you don't really care about any of the mutators. The main thing is you got to get vision of the area,
Yeah.
and that's the trickier part. So you got to get something out. If you have one of the vision mutators, then that could be make it a little bit more of a problem. But the thing is, you can wait for that cycle out, and Karax if you're not using P2, he has good defensive structures, so you can kind of wait it out.
You can wait it out. You can definitely wait it out. All right, we agree on A tier. That's fine. Let's move on. Kerrigan, where do you have him?
Kerrigan, she can, as soon as she comes out, she can end the mission pretty quickly if the right set of mutators. Wrong set of mutators, it can make her life a living nightmare. So her robustness is really not there because early game it's mostly Kerrigan, and if you can end it early, it's only going to be Kerrigan and Omega Worms. So as long as you can do that, if it gets into late game, there's a whole bunch of things that could really screw her over. So I would put her from C to D.
C to D. On Cradle of Death, Kerrigan is A tier. On Minor Evac, Kerrigan is A tier. On Void Thrashing, Kerrigan is B tier. And the reason why, obviously, is because of Immobilization Wave. Immobilization Wave clears out entire bases on Cradle of Death. It clears out, well, you can clear Minor Evac pretty quickly and then just use something like stuff like Mulisks and Lurkers to defend. On Lock and Load, you really only need like two immobilization waves to clear out most of the defenders on the north and east locks, the hard locks. And Kerrigan can kind of, with Omega Worms, destroy the central, the west, and the south locks. So I think it actually sounds reasonable to put her in A tier. Because, like I said, Immobilization Wave deletes most of the defenders. And Omega Worms allow you to ping pong back and forth without having to send your army. Or without having to walk and take so much time that you can't actually push on offense. I can see Kerrigan being A tier, but I do concede that she isn't spectacular against air, and she is weak against some mutators that damage her units, her admittedly fragile units. So B tier is where I would kind of concede the line. What do you think?
I like B tier. The one thing that you said that convinced me toward to go up from C to D to B is Omega Worms. It helps you and ally to ping pong around and to cap blocks.
Yeah.
And also
It
provide
gives-
some degree of distractions
Yes,
and
they're free.
the malignant creep and
Yes.
detection, especially if like we move unseen.
Yes.
Rolls in. The only I wouldn't put her higher because like if
She still needs to clear.
the major mutators that I really dislike with Kerrigan are Fear and Fatal Attraction, the two mutators that disable your hero. You don't get to play the game. So
I would add Poopigators to that list. Kerrigan doesn't
sorry,
have.
what?
I would add Poopigators to that list. She's not
that's
very.
fair. Yep.
She's not very long
Poop
ranged.
tolerant.
Yes. So yeah, B is fine. Let's move on. Nova on Cradle of Death. Oh, by the way, prestige for Kerrigan. Third prestige would be fine. You'd really need the immobilization wave to do the heavy lifting for clearing enemy units here. Anyway, so for Cradle of Death, Nova is C tier. That's probably incorrect, especially now that you have the third prestige. Minor Evac, she is A tier, and Void Thrashing, she is A tier. I think that is closer to A tier because third prestige exists. She can just walk around close to risk free and clear bases using the sabotage drone, the airstrike, and the nuke. What do you think?
Oh, I definitely agree. I have Nova from A to B. She does have to do a little work. Dehaka has to do less work to get through this, but she has a lot of tools. And if the worst case comes into play that you have to hunker down, she has the tools to hunker down: siege tanks, liberators, ravens, so and defensive drones. So I agree to A to B.
Okay, so that's A tier. Raynor. He on actually here. Where do we have him?
Raynor is definitely the one of the least tolerant of commanders to mutators. Uh, there's so many things that can screw with him. If it's buffing Amon's units so that they're harder to kill, or you got things like Black Death.
I feel like Raynor is the testing dummy. Raynor is the testing dummy for new mutators. Like, oh yeah, this Rex Raynor, it's good. Let's add it in. That's how the developers think. Oh yeah, this one Rex Raynor, let's put it in. Well, this one, Rainer's pretty resilient.
I would not disagree with that whatsoever.
And they find a new one. Rainer's pretty resilient. Again, this one, maybe it's too easy. Let's not add this one. Like, Raynor is the guinea pig for new mutators. He's the gatekeeper of whether a mutator gets added or not. If it Rex Raynor, sure, let's add it. If it doesn't Rex Raynor, too easy.
Who knows? That's what the dev team might have been thinking. Is like they really didn't. They really had it out for Raynor. But yeah, I have him. So we were kind of discussing Han and Horner. Pretty much Raynor usually falls where Han and Horner is. He definitely, his only saving grace is if he needs to get vision in remote places for, like, if he has a Karax ally, that could be a nice synergy.
That's a synergy, yes.
But and the other aspect is his ability to drop units wherever. So you don't need to have vision, but that comes with the caveat. You can drop units wherever. Will they survive after the drop is another thing. So
they think to find out.
Yeah. I have from D to E.
D to E. On Cradle of Death, he is F tier. On Mighty Evac, he is D tier. On Void Thrashing, he is C tier. So that averages to about D tier. So that's where he'll land. Stat Boy, on Cradle of Death, he is A tier. Minor Evac, Stat Boy is S tier. And Void Thrashing, Stat Boy is A tier. That averages to about A tier for me. What do you think?
I have Stat Boy from S to A. It's pretty much the usual. He has, at the 4-minute mark, a flying unit. and then you have the opportunity to upgrade that flying unit to super duper flying unit that is almost near unkillable. You have Stetsons all around the place that can assist your ally in terms of movement speed, in terms of HP, and the main problem with Stat Boy, if you can end the mission, it might not even be an issue. Poopigators. They
yes.
need Stetalites.
Yes.
And otherwise, most other mutators aren't going to
double-edged
really
will
bother
also
much.
Double-edged would also unalive Super Gary pretty quickly.
It will unalive Super Gary, but the statlings don't really care about that. So he has the tools to deal with it, except for Poopigators are a little. He has tools, but you gotta pivot real quick to get those tools out.
All right,
it's not easy to pivot.
So Stat Boy A tier again, second prestige, the only one you should go for. Stukov, where do you have him?
Stukov is pretty resilient, pretty easy gameplay. His main problems are Poopigators and transmutation. So he's not known for clearing real quick, so that's also an issue.
Yes.
But you can again, we're playing the dice roll, kids. So if it doesn't work out once, try it again, and maybe it might work out for you if you just want to stick to brainless P3 bunker only play.
It's not like you're straining your hands with your 40 APM bunker building. You're fine.
Exactly.
Walk it
So
off.
the chances you'll get through it is, I think, for Stukov should be A to B.
Okay, Cradle of Death, Stukov B tier. Minor Evac, Stukov C tier. Void Thrashing, Stukov B tier. I think that's B tier's right about right for Stukov. You just make bunkers and hope you don't get poops or transmutation. That's about it. Or if you get to a sufficiently late stage of the game, then your troopers can just gun down the poops before they connect. You can get critical mass bunkers against poops. Just hope you get critical mass before poops. Anyway, B tier is about right.
Mm-hmm.
Lord of the Horde is fine. If you want to go Diamondbacks, it's fine, but I would call that C tier as compared to just bunkering up.
Mm-hmm.
Swann
Mm-hmm.
is D tier on Cradle of Death. He is B tier on Minor Evac because siege tanks and he has very good static defense. And he is B tier on Void Thrashing because rates are very good at sniping. On Lock and Load, I played Wraiths here, and I had a floating factory where the drill can snipe stuff, but I didn't really use it that much. We had an easy time, relatively speaking, because we didn't get any bad mutators. But I imagine with average experience on this one, you get at least one or two really bad ones, and that kind of sets Swann really back. So if you're lucky, you're great. If you're unlucky, that's not great. So that's kind of average, and average is C tier. What do you think?
I he's probably, yeah, okay. I just thinking about it. I'm every time we talk about Swann, I kind of look at Karax and see how did he do, and uh, Karax is a little more tolerant. Again, Spear of Adun doesn't care about any mutators. Only if anything, he cares about the sight one. But even that is not that super impactful to against the Spear of Adun. Whereas Swann's drill, you do need sight, and there's a lot of mutators depending upon what prestige you pick. Could be hit or miss.
Yeah.
The good thing about Karax is he does have the ability to hold out. So, as you mentioned before, if you get a set of unfavorable mutators, if you're trying to do race, unfavorable ones or double edge is definitely unfavorable to them.
Yes.
Fatal attraction is super annoying to deal with.
Yes.
So if some one of those, and Black Death, of course, if one of those rolls, you can wait it out, and you have the tools to wait it out. There's the hard part is if you're trying to get through it quickly, and it's harder for him to pivot. So within his unit toolkit, there's ways to deal with mutators by, I guess, having certain unit sets, but to have them all available in a short amount of time is not as feasible. Karax, he's always going to have Spear of Adun, so there's no really pivot needed there. So B to C for Swann,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay, that's about right. Let's put Swann in C tier. Tychus, where do you have him?
Tychus is known to be a powerhouse, especially with P2, and he most of the times he can just barrel through it real quickly. Even like real nasty mutators such as Pupigators, Transmutation,
He has options.
or yeah, he has options. The hard part is if as you get your outlaws, he's kind of locked into those options. So,
yes.
But you have time to select the right outlaws. If a mutator rolls that's not favorable to one, like let's say his go-to Sirius, there's not too many things that could affect Sirius, but if you don't have the if he's not powered up enough, like let's say you got Poopagators that spawns and you got turrets out, and you don't have enough turrets in his cooldown to take it down, that could lead into potential disaster there. So just be mindful of that. But once he gets Sam out, then that kind of backs that up and helps clean up that point. I have Tychus from S to A.
S to A. On Cradle of Death, Tychus was B tier. Minor Evac, Tychus was S tier. Hammerland, Tychus was A tier. That averages to about A tier. Yes, Swann. Tychus is very robust. There are a few ones that might hurt him. For example, if you're going second prestige and you get hit with something like We Move Unseen, basically you're confined to serious pushing. If you get hit with Eminent Domain, well, you gotta take extra care of Sirius's turrets. Otherwise, you'll have more enemies shooting at you. I think A tier is about right. He's fine. He's really good, but he doesn't really make this a cakewalk. He still has to mind where he's walking, you know?
Yep, and then in comparison, Dehaka is definitely a cakewalk with his pack leaders.
Yeah. All right, Tychus, A tier. Vorazun on Cradle of Death, she is C tier. On Minor Evac, she is C tier. Void Thrashing, she is B tier. That averages to about C tier, but this is lock and load. She relies heavily on time stop for all those previous maps, so taking that out puts her down a tier. So from C, she gets demoted to D tier. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. This is the case where I feel that just trying to average between other maps is not representative, just due to the nature of how time stop interacts with lock and load.
Agreed.
So all I can say is if you're gonna use time stop, try to hold off on it until you get to you get close to finishing up the last locks. That will definitely allow you to not turn on the AI and make things a lot harder than it should be. For me, D to E.
D to E. Okay, Vorazun isn't D tier. Just bad luck with the map, I guess. Zagara, where do we have him?
Zagara, she can barrel through pretty quickly due to her early game power. You have to be mindful of what mutators are up. If the most dangerous one you want to look out for is transmutation and Poopagators. So if it's Poopagators and you send in a whole bunch of Zerglings to try to clean up the enemies, you're asking for a really bad time. Other than that, I mean, suicide units, Black Death, she doesn't really too much care about. It's going to come down to more of what prestige you picked, I think. You can go with P3, half a Brutalist, and try to backdoor and quickly on there if you have an ally that's on the same page of with that type of tactic, or just a frontal approach with P1 or P2. I would put her, for this map, since she has such early game power, I'd say A to B.
On Cradle of Death, Zagara was E tier. On Minor Evac, Zagara was E tier. On Void Thrashing, Zagara was A tier. So the reason Zagara is A tier on Void Thrashing is because she can use Scourge to fly around the sides of the map and just snipe the Thrashers. She doesn't have that luxury in Cradle of Death and Minor Evac. The really bad thing with these two maps is you have to be out in the open. And when you have small fragile units such as Zerglings and Banelings on the map, you're really susceptible to getting your stuff blown up by Blizzard, Scorched Earth, Lava Burst, Tornadoes. You get stopped by things like the Time Warps, the Temporal Fields. She's actually good against Poopagators, I'll give her that. she's good against Banelings are really good against pooping. She's probably the best against fast cloaked poops. But yeah, others, Avenger will make her Banelings way less efficient. Anything that spawns more units, such as Void Rifts, the Void Reanimators, the aggressive deployment, even stuff like Walking Infested will just make her units just slightly less cost efficient because they have to blow up more times. Stuff like Doodlings. I do actually think it's closer to Cradle of Death and Minor Evac than it is to Void Thrashing. She doesn't cheese this map very well. She has to go through entire bases. Even though, yes, she is early game oriented, but again, that's not a great thing if you can't stall in the late game. Remember, guys who are strong in the early game, like for example, Dehaka, Karax, Stetboy, they are strong in the early game, and that's why they got the high tier. But they stayed in the high tier because even if it goes long, they have a way to hold out. Zagara, if it goes long, she's screwed. She's just screwed. And with a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, environmental mutators that make her really have a bad time rallying all her forces all the way from her base, because let's face it, if you're going to put hatcheries on the central lock, that's going to get destroyed by going nuclear, blizzard, lava burst, etc., etc. I think it's closer to D tier than it is to A or B. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say that's fair. But I guess looking at the lineup that we have now, I would say she's definitely better than Vorazun and Jimmy, Han and Horner maybe. So I'd be more inclined to put her into C tier.
I don't think she's on the same tier as Swann and Fenix. Like Swann can hold very long, and Swann
Is
has
she
a
on
Lich Drill. Swann can get value with this Lich Drill continuously, and Phoenix trades very efficiently with his champions and has teleport to counteract the environmental mutators. Zagara is very weak against environmental mutators. I don't think she has to rally all the way from her base, the North Lock and the East Lock. That's bad news. And especially, this is where the environmental mutators are at their worst. The ramps. When a ramp gets camped by a tornado or a blizzard or a time warp or any of those ones, she's screwed because all her forces have to rally through there, and she can't just wait it out like Stukov, because Stukov gains value over time because all of his infested trickles are free, whereas Zagara, well, some of hers are free, but for the most part she has to spend money on them, and that's not good when you have enemies that ramp up in strength over time. I can't really put her in C tier. I think it's closer to D tier. I think she's not.
Okay.
I'll give you that she's not as bad as Raynor and Vorazun, but not a whole tier better. Like top of D. I can see top of D, but not a whole tier better than those three.
Okay, that's fair to me. But my argument, just of what you mentioned, is so you mentioned she has to rally her entire forces. What if you're playing P3?
That's fair. That's fair. She can teleport her half a Brutalisk and deal and gain value, but it's still not enough firepower to clear out the base. You need to clear out the base, or rather, you need to clear out the locks and stand on them for 20 seconds with your ally to capture them. The reason Zagara, just by her lonesome, isn't enough to, or Zagara the hero isn't enough to put her up to C tier, is because it's not enough to clear a base or to hold the locks. Unlike, for example, a Super Gary or a Tychus. Like, don't get me wrong, Zagara is good, but not Stepboy, or not Super Gary good, not Tychus good.
Yeah. No, that's without argument. For sure. I just worry if you put her above Raynor, you're gonna have all the Zagara fanboys crying.
Don't worry. There are fanboys of every single commander on here. There is at least one guy every week who makes a complaint because their favorite commander is in the low tier. I guarantee you there will be one for Raynor, one for Vorazun, one for Han and Horner. One's gonna complain that Stukov is an S tier. Yeah, in fact, some guy will probably complain Stukov should be an S tier because he's so slow to play, or he's so.
Who's gonna Who is going to defend Raynor other than Lila?
Oh no, even Lila doesn't defend Raynor. No, not
Fair
even
enough.
Lila. Anyway, I think are you willing to concede D?
Yeah, I'm conceding D. It's top of D. I'm okay with. I just
Okay,
wanted to make that.
that's fair. All right, Zeratul, Cadden's good. They're free. They gain value over
Yeah.
time. You can go late. You can go early. You can go tornado. You can go lots of fragments. Play whichever you like. S tier. On Cradle of Death.
Tolerant to many things.
Yeah. By the way, he's the only commander on here. Let me pull this graphic back up. He's the only commander who has S tier and Cradle of Death, Minor Evac, and Void Thrashing. So it's a clean sweep so far, and I don't see that changing with Lock and Load.
And we're just talking about cannons, and he has if
Demote
not,
dude.
he can. Yeah, demote is huge, especially if you're dealing with like transmutation or most other things. It just makes
Avenger.
capping locks. Yes. And Avenger and even Polarity.
Polarity. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Zeratul definitely S tier. Like S.
Yeah.
S Zeratul.
Yeah.
He's the only one that can say I'm on Dehaka's level. In fact, is he top of S tier?
I don't see why not. I'm thinking.
Well,
thinking
why
right
not?
now.
Why not? Could be Dehaka. So is he
Yeah.
better than
Well,
Dehaka?
I mean, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's the why not I'm trying to consider.
Same.
Because I mean, worst case is you can still, even as Tutu has demonstrated with Zeratul, no mining. So even if you have a economy mutator, he's not really that heavily impacted. So yeah, I'm not going to be opposed if Zeratul is better than Dehaka in this instance.
Okay. I'm not opposed to it because Zeratul is green and I like green. So he has green eyes. I like green. Look, I'm wearing a green shirt right now. You can't see it, but the viewers can. I'm wearing a green shirt, so I'm Team Zeratul today. All right, there it is. It is done. Who is top of 8 here?
Karax.
Yeah, I definitely see that. Yeah, Karax. And then?
Step Boy. Step Boy or Tychus.
Actually, why not
I'm
Step
leaning
Boy?
more towards.
Why not Step
I'm
Boy
leaning
top
more
of 8?
towards Step.
Yeah?
You got crap like
Poopigators.
the Propagators and what's Fatal Attraction, the ones
Fatal
that
Attraction?
you're not allowed to play. Fatal Attraction Fear when you're not allowed to play the game.
I guess, but I can just go Infestors for that.
And then Imminent Domain can be a pain in the ass too. That will destroy your Steadalites.
I think for that, Stetmann can just go Infestors and Zerglings, and he still won't care.
Yeah, but that means you gotta pivot. Whereas, as I said, Karax, he doesn't need to pivot. Just start buffing up your spirit.
If that's how you plan to play from the beginning. Anyway, okay, fine. Let's have Karax top of A and then Stetboy second in A. I think Nova could be next.
Between Nova or Tychus. Arcturus is gonna be, as I said, he has a usually when you go play Arcturus, you have a certain plan, and if a certain mutator rolls, that could make that plan spiral downwards, and that can kind of tilt you, and it might go downhill from there. Whereas Tychus is, I mean, it's pretty straightforward on what to do. Nova is pretty straightforward what to do.
Tilt? Me? Never. I never get angry playing video games. Come on. What do you think I am? Some sort of rage gamer? Okay. So Arcturus bottom of A?
Yeah.
Okay. So Nova and Tychus. So Karax, Stetboy, Nova, Tychus, Arcturus.
Sure.
Alright. Who's top of B? Well, I think it has to be Kerrigan. Immobilization wave is so good. She is A-esque in clearing, She just has to make up for her really flimsy units and stuff like Fear, which really take Kerrigan out of the equation.
Yeah,
But other than that,
it's.
it's just
I would say
yeah.
between the four, I'd say Stukov is a lot more tolerant, but Kerrigan, if she gets the right set, can go faster. So
That's true.
I think it comes down to what is the higher priority. I th- mm, Both are subject to, if the game goes long, then it can get bad for them.
Yes. Although that being said, if we're talking about a long game, I think Stukov is more resilient toward the long game.
Until yeah, that's fair because he reaches critical mass.
He reaches critical mass. Like I said, if you have enough bunkers, you can just power down the Poopigator, no problem. As long as there's no speed
Yep.
freaks.
Yep.
So what? Stukov top of B?
Oh, that's. And then the other consideration, this is lock and load. So being able to help your ally with mobility is a pretty big thing, and provide on the spot detection.
So Kerrigan top of B.
Yeah, I would say just because of the Omega worms.
Okay.
Kerrigan would be top of B.
Oh my god, Kerrigan top of B. And then Stukov.
Then Stukov.
And then
Abathur. Then out.
See, I told you Abathur was in B. Who's top of C? Phoenix? I think Swann actually. Swann is fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I'm almost tempted to put him back into B. But like I don't think he's quite there. Because he doesn't have that like just straight up pushing power. That pushing power that doesn't really care what you have. If you're pushed with rates, yes, you'll do well most of the time until you get hit with a parasitic bomb to the face, or get hit with a storm. So that's not true with guys like Abathur or Kerrigan.
Yep.
Okay, Swann remains in C tier.
Yep.
And then Phoenix.
And then I would say Phoenix. Yeah, Phoenix over Artanis. Yeah. For the most part, you're playing the crapshoot. If you pick the right prestige, like Phoenix is pretty much like a different version of P2 Tychus with his P2 champions. So I mean, there is that possibility that you can get through quickly. Artanis, he only has kind of one speed. So
one speed. That's one way to put it. Okay, so who's top of D? Zagara?
Yes.
Okay, and then
without a doubt.
Who's second in D? I think Han and Horner because I think the airstrike.
I think it's.
Yeah.
I think it's already arranged. I think it's all arranged already.
That's fair. Okay, so those are the commanders in their respective tiers. Do we have combinations of commanders from B to D tier who would be stronger than Dehaka on his own? I think the usual Zagara and Artanis is a pretty good combination. The Garden Shell Zerglies are pretty good.
I mean, if we can pick from B to D tier, Kerrigan and Abathur.
Because they both get Omega Worms. That's
they
fair.
both get Omega Worms, and you can get Super Creep.
But are they better than Dehaka? I guess if Abathur can get Ultimate Evolutions, that covers the early game power of Dehaka, and Immobilization Wave covers the late game power of Dehaka. But how about the Pack Eater power of Dehaka?
The power of the pack leaders is they don't really care about the mutations at that point. So that's
Omega Worms.
Omega Worms are a huge asset and combined with P1 Malignant Creep. That's a lot of power. And the thing that Abathur lacks is the ability to jump into a base and say nope, where that's where Kerrigan comes in with the immobilization wave.
Yeah.
So I think to really do a lot together. Another combination, I mean, just going with thinking on focusing on P1 super creep, P1 Kerrigan plus Stukov. So she doesn't need to spread creep at all. So that's not subject to environmental mutators, and
That's pretty good.
allows
I wouldn't say that's.
Stukov to get,
I wouldn't say that's stronger
allows
than
Stukov
Dehaka
to
on his
get.
own.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's about right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for what else, please leave it in a comment. I'll see you guys next time.